G'day, Phils, and welcome to the next in our very popular series, our favourite investing books. I'm Scott Phillips, the Motley Fool's Chief Investment Officer, and I have a treat for you. I'm joined by our Director of Research, Kevin Gandiya. G'day, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, Scott. How are you?
Mate, I'm very, very well. Now, I'm going to say this time around, it feels like we're kind of talking a book, literally as well as metaphorically. And we are, not necessarily deliberately, or at least not for the reasons that our viewers might think. We are, of course, talking about the Motley Fool Investment Guide. Turns out you work for the Motley Fool and I work for the Motley Fool. How about that? This isn't just we're not on commission. We didn't get an edict from the boss saying go and sell some more copies of the book. We just think it's kind of worth talking about. In fact, you made it. We had a lot of books already in this series, a lot more to come. But this is one that genuinely we think deserves a spot in this list, partly because I think as a company, our job is to not only just invest well, and we try and do that as best we can, but communicate well as well. And I think David and Tom Gardner, our co-founders, and the full team who put this together have done a pretty good job in doing exactly that. But this isn't about me, it's about you. So why don't you tell me why you think the Motley Fool Investment Guide is a must-read, mate?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. And this is not just about patting our bosses on the back. The book was written by our
Doesn't
co-founders.
hurt. Doesn't hurt.
No, it does not hurt. You're right, and hopefully, performance reviews are around the corner as they're watching this.
That's
But in
right.
all seriousness, Tom and David Gardner, our co-founders here at the Motley Fool, wrote this book. It's the Motley Fool Investment Guide, and Scott, what I really love about the way this book was written was it's written in a very simplified, easy way to understand. So it's perfect for a beginner. I actually got a copy for a friend of mine who's just wanting to learn about investing. So I think it makes a very good gift for anyone who's just curious to learn about how the Motley Fool views the investment world. And it starts at a very basic level. What is investing? What are stocks? How does it all work? And then it goes into some topics that people may be curious about. For example, giving your money to a fund manager. Should you do it? Should you not do it? What are the pros? What are the cons? And it doesn't really prescribe what you should do, right? The Motley Fool is a motley place. We just give people information. We suggest things that we think are good, some things that we think are worth considering, and it's really up to people to consider what's best for them depending on their personal circumstances. So in some cases, for example, putting your money in an index fund is a great way because maybe you don't have the time or the interest or the inclination to pick stocks, and sometimes some people want to learn and go a step further. So I like how the book really goes into that detail and gives people all the information they need. It also just leaves that leeway and room for you to make a decision and choices that really fit your personal circumstances.
Yeah, I agree. We're absolutely biased, so let's just call it out for what it is. But in part because we try and do here what our co-founders and the rest of the team do in the US, which is to try and make investing accessible for people, try and break down some of those walls that a little unkindly, I might say, others might put up to convince people that investing is hard, or you need to pay someone else to do it, or you can't possibly do it yourself, right? The Fool was built on that very idea of, hey, there are some things you need to know. Let us explain them to you so you can do it for yourself. And that's kind of the way we've built our business. Of course, we have a managed funds connected to our business. We do give investment advice and stock recommendations. So as you say, there's many different ways you can do it. But this is a very much a ground up first principles idea of like, hey, if you want to know more about investing, here is both the information, but as you said, also really importantly, the Motley Fool way, in as much as we have one. We aren't a single house with a single house view. I'm often asked by people in media saying, "Oh, I saw you guys wrote about this the other day," and expecting me to have the same view. I was like, "No, that wasn't mine. I don't know what that's about, or I don't actually agree with it in some cases." But we do have a way of approaching investing that I think is absolutely common to all of us, and that very idea of investing for the long term, investing in companies, not tickers, taking an approach which is bottom up. And we do think you can do a very good job, either indexing, as you say, investing with a fund manager if you've got a good one, or doing it yourself. And the book kind of helps people understand how all that comes together.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And it also goes into a lot of detail into specific themes that help us develop alpha as we invest with our specific approach. So you're right. Right at the beginning, we talk about fund managers, index funds, and then there are people who decide to go that step further. And that's really the core of what we do, picking individualized stocks, trying to outbeat and outperform the market. And we show that, it's not as hard as people maybe out there think about. And the book goes goes into two specific styles of investing. One that Tom really represents here for us here at the Fool, which is everlasting investing, which is basically picking stocks that are built for the long term. And Tom has a very specific approach in looking into very specific verticals and areas that make up what he believes are everlasting companies. So these are things like the culture of the organizations, companies with great cultures that allow for the workers to have a very happy place to work for, a culture that fosters innovation and stuff like that. How to evaluate the company's strategy. Is it a winning strategy? And its competitive advantage within its industries. We know companies with strong competitive advantages tend to win over time. It also goes into topics like financials and valuations, which if you're not necessarily numbers inclined, you'll be able to read that and really understand some of the core key basics around those aspects. And then the other style of investing, which David Gardner represents, is really rule breaker investing. It's really a form of growth investing. So finding companies that are growing at a phenomenal pace and how to identify the big winners, if you will, in those emerging industries. And then the book also explores small caps. So just how we know within the smaller cap space, you tend to find the top performing companies within the small cap space tend to outperform the market as a whole and more established blue chip companies. But it's an area of the market that's really under researched for various reasons. The financial services sector, while it's a large sector, really doesn't put too much focus on smaller companies because just the way the incentives are organized in the industry don't lend themselves to do that. So the book, I think, is really helpful for anyone who's embarking on this journey of taking control of their finances, wanting to invest for themselves and for their family members, but really wants to understand exactly what the Motley Fool stands for, what are some of the key things to learn about, and some investment strategies that you can use to build your portfolio.
I like that, KG. I'm going to add one more, mate. You talk about beginning investors. I would say even experienced investors who maybe haven't got their own style nutted out. Maybe you've even not been as successful as you thought you might like to be. Partly that can be, you talk about some of the rest of the industry. I certainly did a little bit earlier. There are some specific approaches which we think can deliver potentially outperformance. We can't guarantee anything, of course. We're regulated by ASIC, and they specifically preclude us to. Not that we would, because we can't guarantee anything at all. What we're bringing to you is our best ideas and our best approaches. There are other approaches out there that are a little more hackneyed, a little more challenging in terms of market beating, but they're really good for sales if you're in the sales business. So it's really important, I think, no matter where you are in your investment career, if you're just starting out, as Coach said, perfect book. If you've been around for a while, you can probably flick the first third of the book or so, just kind of, brush up as you go. But that section, as you say, on our investing styles and approaches, this is not an ad for the Fool at all, but it is also worth saying that the vast, vast, vast bulk of our services here in the US have beaten the market over the really long term, even with those very different motley approaches, as you say, mate. If we said, well, this is the only one way we do it, happens to win, that'd be pretty good, by the way. We've got so many different types of investors, so many different services at the Fool that have all, a very, very large majority of them, have got to be market beating and strongly market beating. So having a few approaches that kind of do, at some level at least, draw back to the same kind of ideas, the same kind of inspiration, can actually be useful. So, mate, I'm going to say, I agree with you. Of course I do. I work for the company. Though, as I said, Tom and David have no idea we're doing. I don't think they know we're doing this series, mate, let alone have they given us any suggestion that we should do the book. We just think if you're watching this, you probably want to know a little bit more about investing. You want a good book to read. I think everyone will enjoy the book. There's value in it for investors of all stages and ages, as there have been in all the other books we've covered, by the way. Again, this isn't Motley Fool versus anything else. If you pick little bits and pieces and build your own style with some help from someone you trust, we think it's probably a good approach. KG, anything more to add, Matt, or have we done it justice, do you reckon?
Yeah, I think we've done it justice, and I'll just add to your point about the experienced investor. I think that's a very good point. Sometimes from time to time, I actually even just have a look at the book. I think what investors tend to do is sometimes you feel like you know everything, or that it gets way too complicated, and you forget that really just a few basic things really drive the vast majority of investment performance out there, and it's more about the behavioral aspects around those. And I think one of the things where Tom and David Gardner have really done well for us as an analyst team in the broader company, and just for investors generally around the world, is really infuse those behavioral aspects of investing. The technical points, a machine can learn those. anyone can be taught if you take a course, university course, whatever the case may be.
Mm.
But really, the behavioral aspects are quite difficult. Once you understand how difficult it is for institutional investors to stick to those behavioral aspects, you actually realize as a little guy, as a retail investor, you actually
Mm.
can have a significant long-term advantage by just sticking to those core behavioral principles. So I think overall, it's a very good book just to be as a grounding, to provide good investment grounding and principles that you can use over your investment career. And from time to time, even I just have a read it again at some of the key things that I've highlighted in the book that are worth revisiting as well.
I can't improve on that. What he said. That's been Kevin Gandiya, our Director of Research. Mate, thank you for joining me. And fools, until next time on one of our various YouTube series, maybe this one, maybe Stock of the Week, maybe Stocks in Focus, or Kevin's going to come back and join me soon. Talk about some other stuff going on in the market. So stay tuned for that one as well. But until then, from all of us, fool on.